Virtual Financial, Team Prosperity, Overview to Quoting and Illustrating Transamerica Term, Term with Living Benefits, IUL, and IUL with Living Benefits. One of the first things that you need to know how to do is get to the actual place where you can quote and illustrate these products. There are several different ways. One of the ways we teach you during training is through your VFG Pro menu. From here, you have three subset menus. You have your main menu, you have your CRM menu, and you have your admin, back office support, platform menu. On the platform menu, under selling tools, you have your financial needs analysis software. You have your iGo electronic application gateway for e-apps. You have Transact for keeping up with policies in underwriting. And then the fourth one, My Transware Illustrations, is a shortcut to where we want to go today. When you click on this, it's actually going to prompt you to log in to the platform. Then it will immediately kind of sidestep and tell you that you're leaving. Click here to continue. And from this point, you have access to quote, illustrate, IUL, and term with Transamerica. It does not matter which one of these you select. As you'll see, you'll have access to both under the product section. So let's look at a couple of things here. First of all, the 2015 only corresponds to the state of California and New York. If you are running California, New York, you need to be on the 2015. Every other state is going to be on the 2017. Now, Super Policy is a traditional term product with a death benefit only. The LB is the living benefits. Now, unless you know it's an automatic knockout for a major reason, somebody has a couple of issues, takes a couple of medications, we're not the underwriters. Go ahead and submit a living benefits application. If for some reason the underwriter comes back and they cannot offer your client living benefits, they will let you know, but they will also not just scrap the entire application. They might come back with an offer in compromise for a super policy. It'll be up to your client if they want to accept that offer or not. Down below here, the Index Universal Life, the IUL. Now the difference in the 2015 and the 2017 is just the ability to put in the living benefits as no-cost upfront riders into the policies. As of May of 2017, we can now put the living benefits as no-cost upfront riders into these IUL policies in 47 of the 50 states. The only states that you cannot do that, California, New York, and New Hampshire. And out of those three, only one, the state of New York, offers no living benefits on the term side. So just a brief recap. New York has no living benefits. New Hampshire, California only has living benefits in the term product. So let's get down to quoting. Let's say we're going to run a living benefits 20-year policy. So we select the product. Now the difference in yes and no here is simply yes will reset all of the data. No will keep the data. So simply put, if you're running an illustration or a quote for somebody and you want to keep that person, but you want to see what another product is under that person's data, then you would select no. That will keep the person as is. Yes will reset the entirety of the insured, the face value, all of that we're going to look at in just a minute. So let's select yes. So we've got the product, the living benefits 20-year. Now what we're looking at is the insured information. So the client name, of course the age, date of birth is preferable, but age will suffice for this point, and the state. So you can see right here that the state of California is highlighted, and you cannot even select that. So it's not going to let you make any big errors. Let's go down and just select Florida. Gender, male or female, obviously, and then the risk class. So you want to know two things here. Does the client smoke? If they do, prepare them for sticker shock, because the living benefits policies cover heart attack, stroke, cancer, and a lot of those medical conditions and events can be traced back to smoking. So if someone smokes, at bare minimum, it's going to double the premium price for the policy, probably triple, quadruple, or even more. So that's the first thing you want to find out. Do they smoke? Second thing that you want to find out is a general rating class that they think, or we think, they might get through underwriting. And we do that by asking them about their health. Do they think they're in excellent, good, fair, poor health? and then determine a rating, and we're going to quote it at that rating. Now, if somebody tells you I am in perfect health, well, they might get Preferred Plus, but you never want to come back and say, hey, you didn't get Preferred Plus, you got Preferred, it's going to be a little bit more expensive. You always want to come back with better news. We would run it at Preferred Non-Smoker, and if they do get Preferred Plus, hey, great, it's going to be a little less expensive than we talked about because you did get the top rating. So Preferred Non-Smoker, male in Florida, age 45, with a Trendsetter Living Benefits 20-year policy. Now the solve. Solve is just simply going to be the face amount that we're going to quote. The face amount can come from the financial needs analysis. The face amount can come from a mortgage protection policy they're looking for, if they're shopping around for a term to living benefits replacement, or if they're just looking at various options for someone and their family or themselves. So the solve will simply be the face amount. Now you can also solve for the face, which simply means at that point you would put in their budget and it would give you the face amount according to the premium they could afford per month or per year. So let's go back to the premium amount, and that will give us the face. So we'll leave it at a $500,000 face, and then we want to run the premium specifications at monthly PAC, so the client knows what it's going to cost per month. Now you do have some additional policy riders that you can add in. These come up, every once in a while. The one I will show you today is income protection. This is a great way to keep your client involved in the process and tailor fit a policy around what they would like to see. For example, let's say that you have a married couple, and let's say the husband says, I want to leave her $100,000 if I pass away, and then after that $100,000, I want to start $2,000 in monthly payments, and I want that to go on for 5 years. After that schedule is fully completed, I want to leave her one final lump sum of $100,000. When you plug those numbers in, hit calculate, it will give you the exact face amount that would be needed to cover that process. So once again, we have a product picked out, we have the insured information, we have the face value, and we have the monthly PAC. So now what we're going to do is go over here to reports, and the first thing we're going to do is run a summary. The summary is essentially like a price check. It's going to let us know how much the policy is and then all the available terms. So remember, we picked out a 20-year, which is right here. However, all the available terms are going to be listed. So you can see, is the policy and the term that we picked out affordable for the client's budget? And then secondarily, if it wasn't the max term, what is it going to cost per month to buy those extra 5 or 10 years that takes them from this age to this age? If this is affordable and this works out for the client, there's absolutely no reason to keep this summary. You would just X out of there, go right back to where we were, reports, under summary is the illustration. Now when this illustration pulls up, you're going to be able to walk the client through the benefits here. First of all, you want to look at and help them understand, yes, Mr. and Mrs. Client, this is a product with a traditional death benefit. In this case, the face value is $500,000, meaning if the client were to pass away, $500,000 goes to their named beneficiary or beneficiaries tax-free. Pretty typical, straightforward, people understand that. In our policies now, they can access up to 90%, or in this case, $450,000 for heart attack, stroke, cancer, disability from an illness or accident. Those are the living benefits, and those are paid out under 3 different scenarios: terminal illness, chronic illness, and critical illness. So let's take a look at the first one, terminal illness. Now this is basically a worst case scenario for your client. They have a terminal illness, a terminal diagnosis, and the professional opinion of who they saw, they have a year or less to live, meaning months to live. It could be 9, 10, 11, 12. If it's a terminal illness, they have the right to go ahead and have the terminal illness accelerated death benefit paid out to them while they're still alive. In this particular case, it would be more than 90%, or in this illustration, close to $463,000. Now, this is not a reimbursement program. There's no trustee or administrator to oversee how those funds were spent. It's cut directly check or wire to your client they do with it as they need. In a situation like this, it's probably to get the final affairs in order, but if they're still well enough to go visit friends, family members that live in other states or other places, by all means, they can do that. Once again, terminal illness, a lump sum payout based on the fact and the professional opinion of who they saw, the terminal illness and the diagnosis comes with less than a year to live. Second living benefit is chronic. Now, chronic is based on disability. It has to do with the client's inability to do some of those daily functions or daily activities, and there's a list of those: dressing yourself, feeding yourself, bathing yourself, etc. Once your client cannot do 2 of those without assistance, it would trigger a minor chronic illness accelerated benefit rider payout. More than 2 could possibly trigger a moderate or severe. Now, these payouts right here are yearly payouts. So the way the chronic illness is evaluated is on a yearly basis. So let's say at 47 years of age, this particular person was in an automobile accident, broke a bunch of bones, was not able to be at work. Transamerica comes in, evaluates the situation, and decides that this is a moderate chronic illness or disability. They're going to go ahead and pay that $36,121 for the year. Now, it's your client's responsibility to chop that up and use it effectively. It's basically $3,000 a month. Transamerica is going to back away, and then close to the year anniversary, they're going to come back. What's happened to your client? If they're fully recovered, then on a sliding scale, they're going to take what was used, and they're going to deduct it from the face amount, so you'll have less of a face, you'll have less living benefits, you'll also pay less premium for the policy, but it still will be an active in-force policy. Now, the other thing that can happen is Transamerica comes back and your client is not recovered. The chronic illness or the disability is still in effect. If that's the situation, then Transamerica will continue to pay out those yearly payouts until one of 2 things happens. Either they recover or they exhaust all of their living benefits. Remember, in this particular situation, it would be 90% of $500,000, which is $450,000. So if they exhausted those living benefits, that remaining 10% of the policy, in this illustration, $50,000, would be segmented as a standalone death benefit policy. It's your client's choice whether to keep that or not. Now, the last living benefit is the critical illness. This has to do with a heart attack, stroke, cancer, based on the age of the claim right here and the severity of the claim right here. These would be paid out per event. So, for example, at age 55, moderate heart attack, $161,000 and change. Help with the hospital bills, pay the mortgage, put food on the table, take a trip. Remember, there's no one overseeing how these funds were spent. They use it for whatever they need. Now, on a critical illness, if your client has a heart attack, 7 months later they have a stroke, there's no waiting periods between the events. As long as there's benefits in the policy to support a payout, they will go ahead and pay that benefit to the client. So just a very brief recap. Terminal, basically a death sentence, less than a year to live, lump sum payout. Chronic, based on disability, their inability to do some of the daily functions of life, however many they can't do, will trigger a payout, and that payout, once again, is a yearly payout, reevaluated on a yearly basis. And then finally, critical illness has to do with the heart attack, stroke, cancer, per event based on the age and the severity of the claim. Now, outside of that, you've got some definitions in this illustration. The one that I share with the client is the conversion option. So they do have some options to convert to permanent policies. There's different ones. The ones that I bring up, or the one that I bring up, is the conversion to an IUL. So from the time this term of living benefits policy goes active and in force, and it's issued, they have a 5-year window from that period of time where they can take a percentage of the face value or the entirety, 100% of that face value, and move it over to an IUL. In that 5-year period, no questions asked, no new medical, client's option. So it's a great way if the client wants the IUL but can't afford it, but they're expecting to make some more money through raises, a business that they're starting, that they can get their protection in place that they need, they can get their medical eligibility in place, and they've got that 5-year window option to convert to an IUL. And like I said, no new medical, no questions asked. Now, the reason we did not keep the summary is on the very last page is the summary. So remember, the summary will list all the available terms. If there's a term that's not available, probably means that it would take that client past 89 or 90 years of age. They're not going to insure at that age or past that age. So that's normally why it will come up not available or not applicable. Two ways that the conversation can go from here. Your client might say, this is an amazing product. I want to see if I can get approved for it. If that's the case, then we are just going back over to our platform menu, pulling up the iGo electronic application gateway, writing the e-app. It's green check marks, red X's, meaning that everything's complete and in place and accurate, or you're missing something or it's not correct. Once you have all green check marks, you want to make sure you remain on the phone with that client that extra couple of minutes to make sure they received their email for e-signature purposes and they're able to e-sign those documents. You don't want to come into a position where you're having to chase people down after the conversation for the e-signature. So just remain on the line for a couple minutes, make sure that gets e-signed. It'll come over to you, you e-sign it, it goes to the carrier, and remember, we get 40% of the 100% advance commission on the submission of the policy. 2 direct deposits a week, 9 pay cycles a month. So as soon as it's submitted to underwriting, that 40% will show up on the next direct deposit. Now, the other thing that could happen is your client says, you know what, this is an incredible product, I want to review it. If that's the case, we send a PDF of the illustration, usually along with frequently asked questions and a brochure, so that while they're reviewing, we can also preemptively get out in front of any other questions they might have. So that when we do get back in front of them, and usually we schedule that next follow-up 24 to 48 hours out, we can go straight into the application, or they might have 1 or 2 more lingering questions that we need to answer. That is the living benefits policy on the term side. So we're going to exit out of here, and we're going to go back over to My Transfer Illustrations. Now we're going to drop down to the very bottom to quote IUL. Now we're going to leave it as a Florida candidate or a client. So in that case, it would be 2017 because Florida is one of the 47 states that does allow the IUL to contain the living benefits. So we select that product. Now remember, if we select yes, it's going to reset all the data and we're going to start over. If we select no, it's going to keep that client's information just with the new product that we selected. So in this particular instance and circumstance, we're going to select no and keep things as they were. So you can see we changed the product, but we still got the same insured information, and now there's another rating class they could possibly get. Usually on a permanent policy like an IUL, if somebody is preferred on a term side, they would get a bump up. So we'll run it at Preferred Plus, still male, 45 years of age, just like the term policy in the state of Florida. Now we're going to solve. And the solve has a couple of different things that you need to be aware of. Guideline versus CVAT. CVAT is going to give your client a little leeway in terms of the way that premiums can go into the policy. So if someone's got a long-term view, at least, 15 plus years are going to be, contributing to the IUL, you want to give them options. So you want to take a look at cash value accumulation test, and then you also want to take a look and analyze why are they getting this insurance. If somebody's getting insurance just to have permanent insurance, they might want a level death benefit. If somebody's looking at this policy, the IUL with the living benefits for what it is, sort of like a health savings plan, retirement plan, self-directed pension wrapped up into one, they probably want their death benefit to either increase or grade. Graded simply means it's going to go up to a certain point and then plateau off. So we'll run a cash value accumulation test, graded, and then from this point you have the solve. Just like the living benefits on the term side, you could solve for face or you could solve for premium. Here it's the same thing, you just have more options. Now I'm not going to go into a lot of these today, but you can solve for various different ways depending on the premium, the 7-pay max, or you can come into an actual face value and that will open a bucket. A traditional way is the target premium solve. So what we're going to do here is we're going to keep that face value just like we did at the term with the living benefits policy, and we're going to run premium specifications. Remember, we always want to see monthly numbers. And then you can choose to add in the living benefits now, or you can choose to do it after you run the original summary. I like to add them after I run the original summary just because it reinforces the fact that it's not going to change the policy on the front end. So let's just go ahead and review real quick. Just like the term for living benefits, we got the product selected, the IUL, we got the client information, we've got the face amount, and we've got monthly. We're going to go right over here to reports. Just like what we did before, we're going to run the summary. The only difference now, the summary is going to come with a little bit of information that we have to look and evaluate and analyze for the client. So the first thing we're going to look at is this face value right here of $500,000. It opens a bucket, and that bucket is from the minimum to the maximum that client can put in. Under the minimum, it's going to cause problems for the policy. Over the maximum, and it's going to mech, and you're going to lose the tax advantages. So you want to make sure the client understands what those parameters are. So on a $500,000 face value IUL for this particular person, you've got some numbers that you look at. Required premium. I never quote this. First of all, it can cause problems with the account. Second, you need to be running target premium to get paid on the particular policy. So we run target as the bottom of the bucket. So you can see that $79.20 per year breaks down into a monthly of $660. So you would say, Mr. and Mrs. Client, under this policy, you would have a minimum that you could put in each month of $660 or a minimum of $79.20 in annual premium, and that's up to a maximum, which is listed as a 7-pay premium. Now, of course, that's the yearly number. So all you would have to do is just pull up a calculator, 19,989 divided by 12, about 1665. So this client could put anywhere from about $660 up to $1665 for the first 7 years or so. Now the bucket will expand out as this policy grows. You don't want to confuse the client. So just give them these parameters, $660 to $1665. Obviously, the closer they get to that $1665 or almost $20,000 per year, the more cash value accumulations. The cash value and the accumulation, the growth and the compounding really work the closer you get it up to the 7-pay premium per year. Now, if this is affordable for the client, there's a lot of different things that you can do from this point. We would go ahead and exit out of here, and then we would talk to the client about how they want to approach this particular policy over the coming years. So at 45 years of age right here, on a typical retirement plan, you're looking at 20 years going into this policy. Now the premium is flexible, and you can show whatever you want for this illustration. Let's just say that we were going to use this as a typical retirement account. So we've basically got 20 years to age 65. So now where we found the target premium solve, we're going to go to the very top here. And that very top is going to have specify all. And when you click on that, it's going to allow you to go down to the premium specifications and start making changes. So let's say that we want to show this policy putting in the minimum, that target for 1 year. And then we want to show the client start to stair step into this policy. Maybe they want to pay $850 for year 2 through 3, and then maybe they want to put in $1,100 for a couple of years, and for the final number of years, they want to max this out at $1,665. Now, of course, these are the numbers for the years. If you put an A in front of it, that just means it's going to be age 65. So we'll cut it off there. So it's showing him stair-stepping into the policy gradually to a max for a number of years. Now what's going to happen is we also add the living benefits policy, or the living benefits into the policy. So we add these. He's 45, so let's add 1 more year to show him at age 74 some additional benefits. So now what's going to happen is we're going back over to the reports. We're going to click on summary. First of all, we're going to show the client that we added in the living benefits. It has done nothing to change the parameters of this policy. So the living benefits are no-cost upfront riders. The only way that it will ever affect the policy is if you have a life event that would trigger a payout that the client elects to take. If not, then it's never affecting the policy. The IUL can cover somebody basically from one of three things happening that happens in the life cycle. Either we have a premature death. If that's the case, we need an insurance benefit, a death benefit to help the people that we left behind that are counting on us. If that's the case, the IUL has that. Now, if we get sick or we get hurt, the IUL can provide us with capital during that particular period of time to provide a standard living protection or a quality of life protection to bridge that period of time where we're having income disruption. And the third thing is we all hope we're going to live a nice, long, healthy life. If that's the case, we need retirement income that has tax advantages and leverage. So let me give you an example of the 401k versus the IUL. The average 401k at retirement has about $400,000. Now, granted, a lot of people have absolutely nothing, but that's the average, $400,000. And then at retirement, you've got this base that you're going to deplete off of for living expenses, and you also defer taxes. So you've got two things that are working against you. You're depleting a base, and you're paying taxes off that. That $400,000 usually lasts the average retiree 4 years or less. Now, if at that same point in life we had $400,000 in an IUL, we could potentially, over a 20-plus year period of time, show them taking loans out against the policy for $800,000, $900,000, maybe even $1 million plus. So yes, there's tax advantages, there's leverage in here, and it's got you covered to allow us as financial planners to take a holistic approach to the financial planning, which people are definitely wanting in today's society. So you can see right here, we set it up, the stair step. It shows accurately right here, and it shows at age 65, no more premium going in. Now, at this point, there's going to be some values that we have to go through, and we're going to do that in an illustration. So what we do here, remember the summary, there's no need to keep this, so we're going to exit out of that, and now we're going to run an illustration. As soon as the illustration pulls up, you're going to see a lot of the front end of the illustration looks very much like the term and living benefits. So instantly we've got, let's blow this up a little bit. Of course, the $500,000 right here for death. So that's typical. That face value will give a benefit to the beneficiaries that were named in the policy if the client were to die. Now, instantly, just like the term living benefits policy, we can access 90% of that, in this case $450,000, for the heart attack, stroke, cancer, disability from an illness or an accident. And remember, just like in the term policy, those living benefits are categorized in three sections: terminal, chronic, and critical. Now, the one thing that you will see as we move through this illustration is the values change. So remember, terminal illness is a lump sum payment basically that has been associated with a terminal diagnosis and the professional opinion of who they saw, they have a year or less to live. If that's the case, remember, Transamerica is going to pay out over 90% of that face value. Well, in our situation, the policy grew. So remember, as the policy grows, every $1,000 the death benefit rises, the living benefits will participate at a 90% clip. So every $1,000 the death benefit goes up, the living benefits will rise $900. That's why you see in this particular illustration, as we get older, as the policy matures and grows, we have different payouts here. So on a terminal illness accelerated death benefit, depending on the age of the claim, these are the associated payouts, and it will max out at a $1.5 million terminal illness payout. Now let's take a look at the chronic. So remember, chronic was based on disability. So you can see as the policy grows, as the client ages, there's going to be more benefits later down the road when typically things start to happen to us. But no matter what age we are, if there's a chronic illness, which remember, it's basically a disability or inability to do some of the daily functions of life without assistance. 2 will trigger a minor. More than 2 could possibly trigger a moderate or severe chronic illness. Remember, these are paid out yearly and reevaluated yearly. So at age 68, if there was a moderate chronic illness or disability, $177,000. Remember, that's per year. Those are pretty good benefits. Now, remember, if the client recovers after a year on a sliding scale, they're going to deduct what was used off the living benefits. If they are not recovered, they'll continue to pay those yearly benefit payouts until they either recover or they exhaust their living benefits, which maxes out at a total payout of $1.5 million. So the terminal lump sum maxes out at $1.5 million. The chronic illness or the disability also maxes out at $1.5 million, but that's an aggregate total that could be used over a period of time. Now, the last living benefit is the critical. And remember, that has to do with a heart attack, stroke, cancer. Depending on the age of the claim, the severity of the claim, they will be paid out per event. And just like the other living benefits, these increased and these grew as the policy grew as well. So at age 68, $295,000 for a moderate heart attack. That can do a lot of good for our clients. So like I said, it's got them covered whether they have a premature death, they get sick or they get hurt, or nothing happens and they live a nice, long, healthy life. Now, there's going to be a lot of definitions in here. I'm not going to scroll through these. I want to show you a couple options that your client does have for mirroring certain indexes. When we say mirror, it's very important because the client needs to understand that this money is not invested directly into an index. In this case, they have the option of the S&P index. We say mirrors the returns because it's not a direct investment into the S&P 500. It will mirror the return with a floor of 0.75 up to a cap of 13.75. That means from any 1 year, depending on what the S&P does, your client's going to earn between 0.75% up to 13.75. So remember, if the S&P is down 10, 15, 20%, client earns 0.75. They participate in the market upside to everything up to and including 13.75. Anything over and beyond that, they sacrifice. Now you're going to be able to show a 25, 20, 15, 10, 5, 1 year look back rate. What did the S&P do? What did this policy do with the cap and the floor? Furthermore, it breaks down the last 20 years down here. What did the S&P do each one of the years? What did our policy do with the cap and the floor? And the 20-year average, you can see the S&P's return almost 5.25%. Our policy with the cap and the floor is returned just a shade over 8%. Now, unless somebody specifically tells me I want to be mirrored to the S&P index, I never recommend it because as an agent, advisor, or planner, you want diversification. And also, look what happens. You have the same floor, but you pick up another 1.25 to the upside. Now the cap is 15%. We just spoke about diversification, so we do get mirrored to the S&P 500 index, but you also get exposure to the Euro Stock 50 and Hang Seng. So American, European, Asian exposure, and you have, instead of just looking at the return of one index, you have what's called a weighted index average. The same deal, 25, 20, 15, 10, 5, 1 year look back rate. What was the weighted index average? What did our policy do with the cap and the floor? And then once again, furthermore, you have the last 20 years broken down each and every year. What did the S&P do? What did the Euro Stock do? What did the Hang Seng do? What was the weighted index average? And then once again, what was our return with the cap and the floor? 20-year average of the weighted index average, 5.07%. Our policy with the cap and the floor of 0.75 to 15%. Return 8.66%. That's a solid return. Now, from this point, the rest of this illustration is going to show them 3 different scenarios. Scenario A, what happens to your client's policy if the markets go through prolonged periods of time of losses or basically no returns? Well, if that's the case, we're going to show you exactly what happens to your policy if you only earn the floor of 0.75 for a long period of time. Now, that's statistically improbable almost impossible. However, we do need to make the clients aware. Now, scenario B is illustrated at a basic interest rate of 3.5%, meaning if the index returns or the indexes returns, subpar returns over a long period of time, what happens to my policy at a 3.5% rate of return? And then the final illustration, illustration C, shows a scenario of the normal summary, which is 7.75%. Once again, at this point, your client's going to have two reactions. Love this policy, want to see if I can get approved. If that's the case, just like the term policy, we're going back over here to the selling tools, electronic application gateway, write up the e-apps, get the e-signatures, done deal. Now remember, the other thing that could happen is, I love this policy, I want to review it. If that's the case, package it up as a PDF, a couple other things. Maybe a brochure, maybe something else from the library that might help them learn the product a little bit more. Once again, preemptively answer any questions they might have so that when we get back in front of them, they're ready to write the app, or they have just a couple more lingering questions that need to be answered. So that is the term with living benefits, the IUL with living benefits, which are some of our best-selling products. Of course, we have 200 carriers, 500 different products. What I advocate that a new partner comes in and does is learn these two products backwards and forwards, and then as other things come up, we'll use those as teaching moments.